Jaron Boots Ennis is a highly touted prospect who will be boxing's next king. Let me put it to you this way. Imagine there was a fighter who was truly the complete package. He was big, strong, fast, extremely skilled offensively, defensively, could fight using multiple different styles, who has a good boxing IQ with amazing athleticism topped off with extreme devastating power, who also just so happens to come from a family of boxers who trained him since a child. Sounds like the ultimate fighter, right? Well, that's literally Jaron Boots Ennis. Boots has everything a man would need and comes from the right circumstances to be boxing's next king. In this video, I'll break down his 3 biggest strengths that will lead him to the throne. Then I'll go over 3 weaknesses he needs to work on to ensure he takes over that throne and remains king once he gets it. Then after that, I'll give him a prospect rating between 1 and 5 stars. Let's get into it. The first strength that stands out about Boots Ennis is an ability that makes him a very unique fighter, because very few fighters possess this skill and even fewer possess it at the level that he does. You see, Boots has a special ability to fight equally well from both the orthodox stance and southpaw stance. This type of fighter is called a switch hitter. Boots is a high-level switch hitter, just like the best welterweights in the world right now, Terrence Bud Crawford. This skill gives him a great advantage in the ring for multiple reasons. The first reason is because since very few fighters are high-level switch hitters, that means most boxers have very little experience dealing with a fighter like Boots. Another reason being a switch hitter is such an advantage for Boots is because since he could fight equally well from both stances, he has twice as many ways to attack you compared to the normal fighter who only fights from one stance. So for example, if he goes into orthodox, he sees that he's having success countering your jab with the right hand over the top from that orthodox position, then he could hit you with that. Or if he sees that nothing from orthodox is really working, but you can't really fuck with him when he's in southpaw, he could go to southpaw and hit you with that straight left, or whatever's giving you trouble. Compared to the traditional fighter who only fights in one stance, if whatever he does ain't working for him, well, he's shit out of luck, because it's not like he could switch to southpaw and try some different shit to find your kryptonite like Boots can. This is also a huge advantage in the fight because it forces you to use a lot more mental energy and brain power during the fight, because you now have twice as many things to worry about coming from a switch hitter compared to a normal one stance fighter. So this means you have to be extra alert at all times when facing a switch hitter, which can cause you to fatigue quicker. The next strength that stands out to me about Boots Ennis is an attribute that all fighters can benefit in having. Applying effective pressure is one of the best things you could do in a fight, and Boots loves to apply pressure. If you watch him fight, you can see he throws a lot of punches in a very creative and overwhelming manner. This high output alongside his very devastating punching power makes Boots' pressure very difficult and dangerous to deal with. Then add on the switch hitting on top of that, and it becomes a pressure that most boxers cannot overcome, hence his undefeated record with the extremely high knockout percentage. What sets up that pressure from Boots is his very active lead hand. Boots is constantly throwing jabs and controlling space with probes. And for those of you who don't know what probes are, they're simply so straight punches that are thrown not with the intentions of hurting your opponent, but more so to measure distance or to control space or set up another punch. This busy lead hand is key to Boots' pressure because those probes and jabs set up his power punches. They also disrupt your offense because it's hard to get going with a jab being constantly thrown in your face, and also that control of space that he has with the lead hand makes it more difficult for you to initiate a very effective offense because you have to deal with that punch traffic he's put out there. And the last reason Boots' pressure is so effective is because he usually throws punches in bunches. He barely throws single shots. Boots understands he is more likely to hit you if he is throwing combinations at you instead of single pop shots. Even when he is just throwing single jabs, he will throw them frequently or mix up the double jab or the probes in there with the hard jabs. Boots is also a very creative combination puncher, and he's good at keeping his opponent guessing on what's coming next. The key to this effective combination punching of his is that he is not a head hunter. He goes to the body just as much as he goes to the head. You see, he understands the best combinations to throw are the combinations where you attack the body and the head, or the head and the body, because he knows that if I'm throwing to your body, then that's going to open up a shot to your head, and vice versa. The third strength of Boots Ennis is is an ability that makes him extremely well-rounded. He is already annoying to deal with because he is a switch hitter, and then he is also very dangerous because he hits really hard and likes to apply pressure. Now, after dealing with all that, you also have to deal with the fact that he's an amazing counterpuncher as well. What makes him such a great counterpuncher is a few things. First is his physical gifts. Boots is fairly tall and long for his division, so that helps him a lot. Along with that size advantage, he is very fast and athletic, which plays a huge part when it comes to counterpunching. The second reason he is a very good counterpuncher is because he's really good at controlling distance. This is very important when it comes to counterpunching because in order to counter a punch, you have to be at a distance where you could see it coming and have enough time to defend it and also catch your opponent before they could defend your counter. Boots controls distance through these two simple ways. First is mainly through probes and jabs. Boots is really good at keeping his opponents at the end of his range with his straight punches and probes. The second way he manages distance is through his footwork. Although his footwork isn't the best, it's still fairly good enough for him to manage distance with it. And his athleticism helps his movement a lot, which makes it that much more difficult to get to him. Which leads into my next reason why he's such a good counterpuncher. The third reason Boots is a good counterpuncher is because he is very hard to hit. You see, on top of him being a switch hitter who hits really hard and loves to apply pressure, he also has great defense. And what makes his defense so good is the fact that he is one of the slickest boxers in the sport today. When I say slick, I mean the ability to transition between offense and defense smoothly while using slightly deceptive movements and patterns, meaning you're doing things that's making your opponent think you're about to do one thing when you're really setting up a completely different thing, all while keeping a calm, cool, collected demeanor and making everything look fluid and graceful. So this slick defense is really the foundation of his counterpunching because in order to counter punch, you first have to defend that punch and also be in a position to deliver a counter shot. So those are the three best strengths of Boots Ennis in my opinion. Now it's time to go over his three biggest weaknesses that have stood out to me so far. But before we continue with that, if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure to hit that like button to show the algorithm this is a video worth promoting. The first and biggest weakness I've noticed about Boots is something that could really get him in trouble once he starts fighting world champions like Crawford. What I am referring to is the fact that Boots is undisciplined in the ring. Now, I'm not referring to him as a fighter outside the ring. I'm literally talking about how he fights in the ring. The reason I say this is because he does not keep the fight where it's best for him. You see, Boots is a dog. He loves to fight. So with this being said, he lets you take the fight wherever you want to take it. He doesn't have a problem going there with you. For example, let's say you're an aggressive, come forward inside fighter and you get that inside position on him. Boots will literally stay on the inside with you instead of trying to get out and get back on the outside and outbox you. Now, he has been successful doing this because the people he's been fighting just aren't on his level. He's that much better than them. But once he starts fighting people who are on his level, he will not be able to get away with this because if two guys are fighting that are at the same skill level, they have to keep the fight where it best suits them in order to have an advantage. The next weakness I see in Boots is one many fighters have, but it's definitely a technical flaw that a high-level fighter will make you pay for. The flaw I am referring to is the tendency of leaning in or overreaching when you punch. Now, he doesn't do this as frequently as somebody like Tank, but he still does it from time to time, and it'll definitely catch up to him once he fights somebody like Crawford. Now, I do understand some fighters do this on purpose, like Floyd would with his signature pull counter, where he would pull back and throw that reach and straight cross and escape on the angle. But regardless, this is still very risky and bad to do because when you lean in, you bring your head closer to your opponent, which makes it easier to counter you, especially if you overreach, because when you overreach, the momentum of the movement exaggerates how much more your head is brought forward. Another reason leaning in is bad is because you're putting most, if not all, your weight on the front foot, which hinders your ability to move in all directions as effectively as if all your weight was distributed equally, or at least like 70-30 on the back foot. And if you overreach, your balance will be way off because all your weight will be on the front foot and you'll most likely break your base, which will take you a second or two to regather yourself and reset, which will leave you extremely vulnerable to counter shots during that time. So for those two reasons why leaning in and overreaching is a flaw Boots needs to fix before he starts fighting the best guys like Crawford. The last weakness I will break down about Boots is a small detail that can have a huge impact because it can mean the difference between getting hit and not getting hit when exchanging with your opponent. Like I said earlier, Boots has very great slick defense, but he still has this one bad habit that makes it slightly easier to hit him. What I am referring to is the fact that Boots doesn't move his head off the line when he is throwing or after he is done throwing punches. For those of you who don't know, in boxing there's this concept called the center line, which is an imaginary line that goes directly down the middle of your boxing stance, splitting you in half. So when two boxers are in their normal stance facing each other getting ready to strike, their head is naturally on the center line where it's easiest to hit. So in boxing you're taught to take your head off the center line by using head movement to move your head left or right. It is also taught to move your head off the line while punching or directly after punching in order to give yourself the best opportunity to avoid any shots coming. So now that you understand this, if you watch Boots fight, you can see he tends to keep his head on the center line. And this is bad because if your head just stays on the line, it's easier to hit you compared to if your head is constantly changing positions and not just staying in one spot. Once again, these are flaws he's getting away with due to his level of competition and his amazing athleticism, but once he starts fighting those top guys, they will take advantage of little flaws like this. So now that we went over Boots' biggest strengths and weaknesses, it is now time to give him a prospect rating between 1 and 5 stars. And notice how I said prospect rating and not just rating. That's because Boots still hasn't fought top guys of the sport yet, so we really don't know how good he truly is until he starts fighting world champions. So this rating is strictly for how good of a prospect he is. Unlike videos I've done in the past on guys like Tank and Haney, those guys are already established. We've seen them against the best guys, so we can tell what their rating as a boxer is, you feel me? With that being said, Boots is a really talented and skilled prospect. It's not often you see prospects as well-rounded as him. He is literally the complete package and all the small holes in his game are fixable. So with that being said, if I had to rate Boots as a prospect between 1 and 5 stars, I would give Jaron Boots Ennis a 4.5 star prospect rating. The reason I won't say a 5-star prospect is because there are still plenty of holes in his game. I only listed the 3 that stood out to me most, but I definitely noticed more than that. He is very deserving of 4.5 star rating though, because he truly has all the tools you'd like a boxer to possess. He is fast, he has great cardio, he has devastating power, he is extremely slick, he has great offense and defense, he can fight from the outside, he can fight on the inside, although his inside game does need some work, he can still get it done. He can fight in the pocket, he can fight going forwards or backwards. Boots is a truly complete fighter in my eyes, and from what I hear, he lives a true disciplined fighter lifestyle, so there's truly no limit on what Boots can accomplish in the sport. I can definitely see Jaron Boots Ennis becoming boxing's next king.